Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Reinvention Game podcast, a podcast about what to do when you unexpectedly reach the end of the road toward your ambitions. My name is Marta Ruszczynska. I am a former tennis player, and I'll tell you my full story in this episode today. I decided to start this podcast for many reasons. Number one, I want to learn how other athletes or other professionals in highly competitive industries dealt with finding themselves at the end of their career. How did they work through the mess of emotions and dreams when they realized they weren't going to make it as far as they hoped? How did they overcome setbacks or find new paths forward after leaving their sport or field? In other words, how did they reinvent themselves and the goals they were aiming for? Although I was an athlete and I'm starting this podcast from a place of athletics, this podcast is not just for athletes. It's for anyone who's ever had to let go of a dream and start over. For our first episode, I wanted to share my story. I grew up in Poland, and my first contact with tennis was when I was 6. My mom, who never practiced any sport competitively, needed a ride home from work. Her friend said it was no problem, but first she needed to stop by a tennis club to sign her son up for tennis lessons. And in talking with her friend, my mom figured that maybe it would be a good idea to sign me up as well. And the next thing I knew, I was 6, running around the tennis court, chasing a yellow ball, and I absolutely loved it. I was 7 when I played my first tournament ever. At age 9, for the first time, I traveled to a tournament in a different town without my parents accompanying me. I took a bus with a 10-year-old friend of mine at the time. And at age 10, I told my parents I didn't want to go on ski trips anymore because I didn't want to risk an injury that would hinder my ability to play tennis. At age 12, I announced I wanted to stop any other extracurricular classes to focus solely on tennis. So as you can see, I was all in on tennis. From age 10 to 18, I attended 4 tennis camps each year and played in many tournaments. I am pretty sure I played in every possible tournament across all of Poland. And the whole time I was motivated by a singular vision that one day I would play at a Grand Slam tournament. After school, I would go straight to my tennis club to hit against the wall before my practice. No matter the temperature outside, I would show up. So 7 a.m. practice in winter meant hoarfrost on the net, ice on the walls, and a warm-up wearing a hat and gloves. I often spent my birthdays at tennis camps or tennis tournaments. So celebrations for anything other than tennis became a thing of the past. I did get injured from time to time. I've had my fair share, but that didn't really stop me from being on a court either. I injured my right hand. Well, that's okay. I played with my left one. Couldn't serve due to my inflamed shoulder. I served underhand. Had to wear a collar after a car accident. Well, I still showed up to practice. And even in the hospital with an IV, I still managed to sneak out and attend a practice. No one could keep me off the court. I just knew I belonged there. When I was 17, my parents and I decided we would put everything on the line so I could have a chance to play for the Women's Tennis Association, WTA, and join the ranks of professional tennis players around the world, playing in tournaments internationally. And we had invested so much time, energy, and money into this journey. And I was so close to the goal I had pursued so single-mindedly since I was a young child. However, a month before my first tournament with the WTA, I was at a national tournament when something was wrong with my right wrist. All of a sudden, in the middle of a match, I couldn't grip my racket anymore. I was totally alone, and my right hand wasn't doing the thing I had practiced time and time again. Obviously, this was a major cause for concern. I had to withdraw from the tournament. My parents came to help me, and I was rushed to a doctor for examinations. Somehow, the triangle cartilage in my right wrist had gotten damaged, And the doctor gave me steroid shots, put a cast on, and told me basically that I may never be able to play tennis ever again. I was devastated, on the verge of depression, and questioned everything in my entire life. Even then, though, I didn't give up hope. I was extremely fortunate to have parents who made many financial sacrifices so I could play tennis. Throughout my time playing, I had great coaches, a supportive family, opportunities, and resources to play in many tournaments, passion, perseverance, and highly conditioned physical capabilities. However, I had one element I had overlooked over and over again. I was struggling mentally on the court every single time. I could win a match with a higher ranked player who looked much better on paper, or I could lose a match after leading 5-0, 40-15. And it was basically a mental and emotional roller coaster. And my parents never played sports, so they weren't familiar with the psychological intensity of that roller coaster. There was also a social stigma about seeing psychologists at that time in Poland. So the best support they felt comfortable providing me with was believe in yourself and everything will fall into place. Well, it didn't. I see now how much that approach to mental health affected me then and continues to affect me to this day. Going back to my tennis career though, my family and I dedicated ourselves to a long recovery process for my wrist. Once it was finally healed, I left Poland to play for Division I college in the United States, and my dream had officially been revived. I hoped that after 4 years of consistent hard work, I could return to professional tennis. But unfortunately, my freshman coach did not agree with my dreams or hope and shared the same idea. And he had a habit of focusing all of his abuse on a single player on the team. And I was his target. His consistent belittling and criticism nearly broke my spirit after I had endured and overcome so much basically to get where I was. And to keep my dream alive, I was forced to transfer, and the psychological damage was done. My vision, my dream was starting to fade. I felt defeated, broken, and farther away from the dream than I had felt in years. I continued playing tennis at a collegiate level because I loved the game. In total, I spent 5.5 years playing tennis in college and grad school. It was full of ups and downs, that's for sure. But ultimately, I'm so grateful for the experiences and lessons I've had through my journey in tennis. But now, come to today, after 20 years of dedicated my life to tennis, I have to admit that I'm struggling to build a new reality that isn't centered on tennis. I travel a lot, living a bit of a nomadic life, and I'm consistently trying and learning new things, hoping that the next skill or knowledge is going to be the next big thing, something so all-encompassing that I could dedicate myself to it the way I dedicated myself to tennis. But so far, that hasn't happened yet, and that's a hard feeling. I'm 28 and grieving a career I never got to explore with the WTA. I know a typical 9 to 5 isn't going to work, and it's not easy finding out what does. So that's where the reinvention game comes in. I'm going to research and interview people who hit similar walls or forks in the road and found a way to reinvent themselves and their dreams to keep themselves going. I'm going to share what I learned in this podcast so that you can hear those lessons too, because I know I'm not alone. Many people get to a moment in life when they're not sure what's next. So join me, and together we'll learn how others rebuilt their lives, found new passions, or continued working in their sport in different ways. If you've listened this far, thank you so much for sticking till the end of this episode. I really hope it helped you get to know me better and understand the idea for this podcast. I'd love to hear your thoughts or suggestions, so please don't hesitate to leave a review or message me on Instagram. And make sure to tune in next week, where I'll be speaking to Monika Gębarzewska, who will share her own journey of reinvention after leaving professional sports.